Good evening, everybody. We left off on page 9. Ronan led the way forward, and they soon got to the rock. It was hard to miss, sitting in the middle of the countryside like it was beamed there by some kind of spaceship. It was on top of a small hill, and the kids had already spotted it. They scoured it, looking for their parents' initials. "How'd you carve them into the rock?" Patrick shouted eagerly. "I found him! I found him!" Aiden squealed, and Patrick ran over to where Aiden was. Connor and Kiri chuckled as they climbed the small hill. Once there, Connor sat on the rock and pointed at the initials. KD and CO. Can't believe they haven't eroded away by now. "What'd you carve them with?" Patrick asked. "My pocket knife, believe it or not," Connor said. "Took all afternoon," Kiri told him. "That wasn't the only reason it took all afternoon. I know what you two would do when you came up here." "Mr. Sweeney," Kiri protested with a smile. "The kids are here." Ronan chuckled. "You said you're in 5th grade math, lad," he said to Patrick. "So have you entered 5th grade health yet?" "Mr. Sweeney," Connor said with an exasperated, pained expression. "Please." "Oh, fine, fine," Ronan said with a grin. Aiden and Patrick looked terribly confused. There was an uncomfortable pause, and after a minute, Kiri said, "Well, it's good to know they're still here." "Where would they go?" Ronan asked with a smile. "So this is where you and Mum would go to look at the clouds?" Patrick asked. "That's right," Connor answered him. "We'd spend all day out here. It was our special spot." "You're not the only one, lad," Ronan thought. "Did you play tag and go exploring?" Aiden asked. Kiri chuckled. "I think we played tag once," she said, smiling fondly at Connor. "But mostly we just relaxed." "Can we play soccer now?" Patrick asked. "Oh, we left the ball in the car, didn't we?" Connor realized. He sighed. "I'll go get it," Kiri said. "I'll come," Patrick offered, eager to jump over that fence again. "Me too," Aiden followed, and they took off at a running pace toward the fence. Ronan turned to Connor once they were gone. He sat down next to his younger friend. "How are you holding up, Connor?" Connor shrugged, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "I'm fine. How are you?" "Fine," Ronan answered. Then he smiled. "We make a right couple of liars, that we do." Connor chuckled, and then grew serious. "I really am very sorry about Mrs. Sweeney." "I know you are. I am too," Ronan said softly. He looked up at the sky. "I come out here occasionally, after a storm. See the rainbow." Connor nodded. "It's a good spot. It helps." There was a pause. "I'm sorry we didn't make it up sooner. Or call. We've been busy these last 7 months, but our last 2 trips here were just... You know, there's no excuse. We should have made the time. We should have called." "It's okay, lad," Mr. Sweeney told him. "No, it's not. It won't happen again," Connor promised. Another pause. Connor asked, "Living alone?" "The kids stop by every now and then," he said. "Never bring the grandchildren. They're always in school or at some event or another." "It's too bad," Connor said, frowning. "Ah," Ronan brushed off the comment. "Seeing your wee ones was just as important." Connor gave him a small smile. He knew Mr. Sweeney didn't have the best of relationships with his children, and that he had thought of Connor and Kiri as his grandkids back when they were in their early 20s. Mr. Sweeney had really helped Connor, not just when they were young adults, but when Connor was a little boy. "Bridget, Colleen's daughter, had her baby last month. Hasn't been around to show him to me yet. She called, though. 4.25 kilograms, baby boy. Named him Nevin." Connor grinned. "That sounds great. Why don't you take a bus into town, see your great-grandchild?" Ronan shrugged. "Would have invited me if she wanted me to." "Don't assume that. New parents are very busy, as I'm sure you remember." "Of course. Never forget those years. Or any years, for that matter, Connor. Life's too damn short. Connor nodded. I know. Ronan looked back at him in the eyes and nodded. Yes, I know you do. They were silent for a moment before Ronan asked, I know how you feel about shrinks, but perhaps considering all this... I'm okay, Mr. Sweeney, Connor assured him. Trust me. Ronan raised an eyebrow and let it down slowly. I've heard you say that before. Connor sighed. No one's going to make you talk about it, especially not me. Just give it some thought. Ronan had that I know what I'm talking about look in his eye. Connor nodded. I'll think it over, he said. Ronan nodded, satisfied. Looks like Kiri's back with that football. Connor turned his head and waved to his wife and kids. They waved back. Aiden and Patrick ran ahead, while Kiri jogged not far behind with the soccer ball. Heads up, she yelled, and threw it. Patrick headbutted it over the hill, and then kicked it up the rest of the way. Aiden trailed closely behind, trying to steal it from his older brother. Ronan chuckled. Bundle of energy, those two, he said. Kiri jogged over and came to a halt next to the rock. The kids were now competing for the ball, running around on the grass. You used to say the same thing about us, Mr. Sweeney, Kiri said with a grin. Still say the same thing about you, Ronan told them. Kiri and Connor laughed. Connor scooted over on the rock to make room for Kiri, and she sat down with a smile. They spent the next hour talking with Mr. Sweeney, while the kids played tirelessly on the grass. It was exactly as Kiri had imagined it 7 months ago. It was perfect. Scene change. Do you see them? He nodded. Most definitely. Now is the time. She will go back to work soon. So will he. The children will go back to their school. They will. If we want to do this, we should start now. That is your choice. Why are you hesitating? You didn't hesitate before. This is not hesitation. This is solely calculation. The explanation will already be there. There have been too many similar incidents. You said it yourself. I understand. It's flawless. There's no reason not to continue. I understand. It is not a question of whether to continue, but when and where. We will start in one city. We will start in Chicago. Yes. And then we will move to others. Only after success of the first. Of course, that is the logical course of action. Proceed with caution. I will. We'll read more tomorrow.